Afternoon once again, YouTube. Back again to speak about another fight coming up this weekend. This one is the co-feature or the undercard feature, if you like, in America, and it's between, Adrien Broner and John Molina Jr. Don't know where I got that before. Anyway, before I really go into the details of the fight, I just want to say I don't really buy into the Adrien Broner hype, and I never have done. You know, when he was knocking out people who, let's be honest, weren't really on a world level, and he was knocking them out for fun. People were making a lot of hype about him, and I said, well, let's get him in with a classy operator and see how he does. And it was like, I'm going to be the next Mayweather, all this rubbish. Never happened. Anyway, so I don't buy the hype of Adrien Broner. He's a good fighter, don't get me wrong, and he's a world level fighter, but he's not this, elite, unbeatable fighter that he thinks he is in his own delusional head, because he makes too many mistakes, and he's certainly no Floyd Mayweather. The amount of times Adrien Broner gets hit in a fight compared to Mayweather is just night and day. Broner is not a great defensive fighter at all. He tries, but no. For someone who claims to be as good as he is, he gets hit way too easily and lacks defence. And also, sometimes, to be honest, lacks the work rate as well. Now, I don't want to be too harsh. I just wanted to get that out there before I go into the details about this fight coming up this weekend. But let's do what I always do. Let's try and look at the last 5 fights of each opponent, see if anything stands out. Let's see. Adrien Broner's last 2 fights. Carlos Molina's on there. That's where I got Carlos a bit from. Not bloody John Carlos. It was Carlos Molina he fought 2 fights ago. But yeah, his last 2 fights have been quite straightforward, really. 2 fights you'd expect him to win against Emmanuel Taylor and Carlos Molina. Some people might say they were a little bit disappointed that he couldn't finish them in more style. Both fights went the full 10 rounds, but beggars can't be choosers. He won both fights pretty comfortably in the end, so we'll give him his credit on that. Now, before that fight, of course, is where it starts to get a little bit interesting. It's down to opinions. So, ignoring the last 2 fights that he's had, let's go back to 5 fights ago when he fought Britain's own Gavin Rees, which was a complete mismatch from the start. Let's be honest, Gavin Rees was never ever a world class or elite fighter. He was a world champion once upon a time, down to a fantastic victory, but he lost the title on his first defence. And when he went over to the States to fight Broner, I don't think anyone realistically harboured any hopes that Gav the Rock was going to bring that world title home. The one thing you would say is he put up a brave fight while it lasted. But let's be honest, the pressure that he received from Broner was always going to be too much. Sorry, excuse me a minute. Was always going to be too much. And, that showed. It was a mismatch from the start. Broner won another fight. And, of course, like Broner always had done, made a massive meal out of it, when in reality, it was a good victory, but nothing to shout from the hills about, Then he obviously went and fought Paulie Malignaggi. And we had all that beef with, side piece and fucking who's girl what, blah, blah, blah. Got a little bit long-winded in the end. But looking at the fight itself, I thought Malignaggi was a clear winner. I really do. I don't see where Adrien Broner's won that fight. I still don't. I can watch that fight now, and I still don't see how Adrien Broner got the nod on that fight. As far as I'm concerned, Adrien Broner got convincingly outboxed. I mean, there's a point in that fight when Paulie Malignaggi's jabbing Broner and looking at Mayweather in the crowd and talking to him. And Broner's not even doing anything about it. It's just like he's accepted his fate, just standing there. And it's like, well, that was all the way through the fight, of course. But for the majority of that fight, Paulie Malignaggi completely outboxed Broner. Outboxed him and outthought him. He might not have the power, that's granted. We all know Paulie Malignaggi's got feather duster hands. It's nothing offensive towards Malignaggi, but the fact that he got where he has got to in his career without that knockout power just shows you how much of a good boxer Malignaggi actually is. Okay? And I think Malignaggi won that fight. I think he comprehensively outboxed Broner for the majority of that fight. And I still, if there's anyone out there that's a massive Broner fan and says that I'm talking bollocks, then, well, I think there'll be a lot of people out there on the net that would agree with my opinion, including Paulie Malignaggi himself. But of course, Malignaggi's always going to say he won the fight if it's close. That's just a given. But that was a controversial fight, and that for me, that was that was kind of not stepping stone. That was what's the right word that I'm looking for? It was like a vision, you know. That was like this is what's going to happen if you don't make changes, right? And then Adrien Broner went into this headstrong fight against Marcus Maidana. And I seriously think Adrien Broner had no respect for Maidana going into that fight. I thought, you know, the impression I got of Adrien Broner is that he was just going to walk into that ring that night and do a job on Maidana. I was one of the few people that predicted Maidana would give him a lot of problems based on the style, based on the fact that Adrien Broner is quite easy to hit. So I was not surprised at the fact that Adrien Broner got knocked down twice. What I was surprised at, in fairness to Broner, was the fact that he showed an amazing amount of heart. You know, he was a bit of a dick at the end of the fight, but what I mean is, he took the knockdowns, he still carried on fighting, you know, he didn't give up necessarily, he got on with it, you know, and I think no matter what you think of Adrien Broner, you've got to give him some respect from that perspective. Okay? So he lost that fight, and I don't think there's anyone anywhere that can dispute that one. Okay? So on going into this fight, Adrien Broner's on a bit of a, you know, went down like a little slope, and he's slowly working his way back up. So is a John Molina Jr. fight going to be the fight? You know, is it going to be the ideal fight to this point of Adrien Broner's career to go out there and look good to go on to other bigger things? I'm not so sure. You know, I mean, I would expect Broner to win this fight, but is he going to be convincing? I mean, let's look at John Molina Jr. for a second, right? You know, he's not. Let's be honest about John Molina Jr. He's not a world-class operator, but he has been in there with some classy opponents, right? His most recent fight, okay, was against Humberto Sato, who of course is the former world champion. Excuse me, former lightweight and super featherweight champion for the WBC. Kind of getting a little bit long in the tooth now as well, some would say, but still fighting on a little bit of an undefeated streak at the minute. And you know, I didn't watch the fight. I've read the reports. From what I can gather, John Molina Jr. didn't really show up for the majority of the fight. So, you know, let's excuse that one. But the fight before was the one that interests me. The fight before is when he fought Lucas Matisse, and he actually had Matisse in a lot of trouble early doors, although partially down to a headbutt, accidental or not. But you know, in that fight, that kind of, you know, that kind of shows that when John Molina's mind's on it, he can give fighters problems, and not just any old fighters. You know, fighters that would be classed as world level fighters, world title holders, world title contenders, or former champions. You know, he can mix it. He's not a slouch. He can mix it at that level. He's just not the greatest. He's just, you know, he's not gonna light anything up. He's not gonna win world titles consistently or defend them. You know, he's not that type of fighter. But he can give you a test. I mean, just going on the previous to that fight, the only decent win that I think he's got on his record is he beat Mickey Bay, who of course is now the IBF lightweight champion after beating Miguel Vasquez last year. So, like I say, John Molina is not a slouch. He can give problems. But for me, even though if you look at the records, it doesn't matter if you look at the records. Molina's lost 5 times. Obviously, Broner's lost once. You know, but looking on previous fights, it's kind of saying to me that this fight really depends on how Adrien Broner is going to approach the fight. You know, it doesn't really depend on. I don't think it depends on how John Molina is going to approach the fight, because I think we kind of know how John Molina is going to approach the fight. But I don't know, it's a weird one. I don't rate Broner anyway. I do think Broner is a little bit delusional and stuck in his own little mind half the time. And certainly lately as well, he's been packing around like between fights, way overweight. I mean, like Ricky, let's go back to Ricky Hatton back in the day. People used to call him Ricky Fattenat, you know, out when he wasn't fighting or out of training. But fuck me, Adrien Broner piles on weight, man. Like, shit. That's not healthy. It's not healthy at all. I know, and he's 26 now as well. You know, and he keeps on doing that into his late 20s and early 30s. He's really not going to do his career any justice going in the long run at all. In fact, if he keeps on doing that, I wouldn't be surprised if he's retired come age 32. That's a serious one as well. I'm not joking around. That's me being serious. Because you can't do that. Fighters that go on for long careers are fighters that eat right, keep healthy, and even in between fights when they're not training, you know, they're never kind of more than, you know, 9 or 10 pounds above their fight weight. They keep within limitations or within limits. So when they start their training camps, they've got their set plan and they can work their way down perfect for the press conference. For the weigh-in, before obviously rehydrating before the fight. You know, but if you're going into a training camp and you've got to lose like fucking 24, 28, 30 pounds plus, like, Jesus Christ, that is not healthy for your body at all. When you consider as well a training camp on what, an average, 8 to 12 weeks, depending on what magnitude of fight it is, I mean, that's ridiculous. So, it depends on Broner's attitude. It depends on Broner's attitude and mentality going into this fight, I really believe. I do believe Molina could cause him problems, but I'd expect Broner to be able to come through his fight. But it just depends on his mindset, the way he is. It depends on his attitude. That's my opinion. I mean, like I said, I can't really give, apart from his win over Mickey Bay, I can't really give John Molina Jr. a lot of credit for his fighting career because he's a bit hot and cold, he's a bit up and down, a bit inconsistent. I can't really give anyone any credit for being inconsistent. So it's a fight between two guys. I want to take the next step. Back to my original question: is it a good fight for Broner to take if he wants to kind of take a step to get back up there? Yeah, you know, like I say, Molina's been in with some good competition. He's beat some good competition, so it is a good fight. But it just depends on how Broner's approaching this one. It really does depend on how Broner's approaching this one. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, I'm probably not going to watch this one live, to be honest, although I'm excited about the main event, which, you know, I'll be doing a video on in just a second. But I won't be watching this live. It's not, you know, even though the main event excites me, it's not a card that he's like getting me hyped up to stay up until 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning just to watch it. So it will be a case of I won't be doing. Jesus, fucking cold. I won't be doing any like post-fight videos, you know, like Saturday night or anything like that. It will be the case of I'll be doing post-fight videos Sunday afternoon after I've watched it Sunday morning. Because I've got a lot of spare time Sunday. So I can spend a lot of time watching Saturday night fights back. And yeah, let me know what you guys think. I mean, maybe I'm being a bit harsh on Broner. I'm just saying as I see it. Really, you know, I'm not cynical arsehole or nothing, but whenever I do these videos, as people may know if you've already watched my previous videos, I just say I see it and I give my honest opinion. Now, if you think my honest opinion is wrong, then please leave me a comment. You know, I'm not going to shy away from a debate when it comes to boxing. But one thing I don't want is, like I've said to people before, I've said in previous videos, you know, you just don't go on my comments there and just start bulleting shitloads of personal abuse or like discrimination bullshit. Like, I ain't got time for that. You know, but any genuine boxing comments or debatable comments down there are more than welcome, and I'll be happy to respond. Anyway, please subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and leave your comments if you've got one. Peace out.